Hello my friends, Jacob is here once again. Thank you for pressing play, for spending some time with me. Today we're talking about an important topic, probably the most important topic there is. The voice of God. That's right, the voice of God. Probably the most important thing there is, considering it's like God is the only thing that really matters. Now I suppose that you are wondering, why, Jacob? Why would you want to talk about the voice of God? And what does it have to do with the Pentagon? Well, I got an email from my buddy Mark, IPA. He's probably in the live chat. Say hi, Mark. Told me to look into it. I looked into it and I already knew about it because I covered a show on this a while ago. Back in 2018, they developed some technology that would be pretty freaky. It would be like the eye of Sauron coming out at you in the middle of as you're approaching your enemy. All of a sudden, a big fiery ball would start to speak to you out of it. They call it the voice of God. It's a non-lethal weapon that was developed by the Pentagon. But I think back in the day, it was also discovered. Forbes, I think, put out an article about this. I wasn't going to talk about it. I didn't see the significance of it. It's too much fear baiting going on to begin with, right? You got to worry about people shooting lasers into each other and getting you to think that God's speaking to you. Spooky stuff, right? A lot of people already think that they have technology where they can, get you to hear things. And they probably do. So, Ernie, out of the blue, my buddy Ernie, he wanted to talk to me about this. He says, I wanted to send you the voice of God by the Pentagon, but I didn't want to scare you, didn't want to get you freaked out, didn't want to bum you out. And I was like, Ernie, send me stuff all the time. I like when you guys send me stuff. It's very helpful because it turns me on to things that maybe I didn't find yet. So I appreciate it. I always mention you on the show. Email me. My email's below. Just try to keep them short because I get a lot of emails. So I thought to myself, that's a pretty awesome topic, right? The voice of God. And I realized it wasn't about telling you all about the spooky lasers. I'll tell you about it first before we get into the real meat of the show. There was a video showing how this works, and it was eerie, but it's been taken down. It was, I think, shared by Popular Mechanics and a couple of other websites, Scientific Daily, and I couldn't find the video anywhere. In 2018, the Pentagon Joint's Non-Lethal Weapons Program released this video of two short pulsar lasers creating an actual, like a pulsar field that looks like a gigantic fireball. And they used the lasers, they used the lasers to manipulate the air. And you hear crackling and popping, and all of a sudden they can manipulate it to sound like a voice. And supposedly it sounds very, very scary. But I couldn't find the video. Religion will make you think that the voice of God is something you can audibly hear. And I'm not saying you can't. Some people say that they hear God speak. Oh, God told me this. First 10 people that send $1,000, they're going to be blessed, right? You've heard that? How terrible. Reducing the voice of God to,
hey, this is how you can make more money. Tell everybody that I told them this. Let them know.
Yeah, okay. That's not the way God speaks to me. God speaks to me in many ways. Most of the times it's through my circumstances. Sometimes we get dreams. Dreams in the scriptures. There are many ways that God speaks to us. So I thought it was important for me to kind of point out a couple of those ways. Kind of get you all tuned in to the most important thing there is. Get you all excited for the day that we're in. A day where you're going to start hearing the voice of God in ways like never before. You see, God is supposed to lead us. Much like in the old days where they thought the Spirit of God, the Spirit of God did dwell in the Ark of the Covenant. It was this basically it looked like a big square, but it looks like this. And that was built to house the Spirit of the living God. And what would happen is they would carry it. When God would say move, they would move. And when God would say stop, they would stop. So they knew. Right? They didn't know where they were going. They never knew where the next step was. They just knew when it was time to move because things have a tendency of, getting your attention. Like a tragedy or blessing, like losing your job or getting a great compliment. There are these big events in life that can get our attention, the big ones, but they're the little ones that if you learn to pay attention to, if you learn to clue into them, then you don't have to have these big, terrifying, terrible events to snap you out of your slumber. Now, this is a true story. Every time I knew I was supposed to move from one place to another place, I didn't listen. I dragged my feet, and then things would be more and more uncomfortable until all of a sudden it was like, okay, you gotta go now. Right? You don't have a choice anymore. That's the way it is. See, even an eagle, when it makes its nest, a dear woman named Elaine Cook told me this. She passed on, God bless her. She had a great website that was confirmation to me. Her and many others that had gone before me, because, you know, when you start to understand all of these things and you start looking, it's like somebody else out there has to understand. So you start seeking, and when you see these people, you start to, you want them to be your mentors, but then soon you realize it's like you got to be led by God. You got to listen to the voice of God. You can't just go to a pastor or a rabbi or an imam or a guru and just get your guidance from. You got to go to the source. You got to go to the Lord, and He speaks to you through your circumstance. Many times, I liken that story that Elaine told me of the eagle in the nest, and how an eagle builds its nest with rock and sticks and stuff like that, so that when the baby eagles, I don't know what they call, birdies, eagies, I don't know what they're called, but they're cute. I have a bird nest right next to my door again, another robin's nest. This time it's like literally right outside my heart bush, outside my tree, this one. So this is another one of the heart bushes, and as you can see, right there's the door. Oh, and look what's right over here in the little nest. What do we got here? What do we got here? Right there. Aw. Hello. Hello, my beautiful friends. My 3 little birds at my doorstep. How beautiful are these guys, huh? So cute. Look at where they are in relation. Like, here you go. You walk. I'm like walking in, and I'm like, hey guys, what are you doing? What's going on? So cute. So beautiful. What a gift. What a gift. What a great sign. Little birdies, every time we come into the house, they're right there, reminding me of what God told us back when the pandemic began and everybody was so scared. And I said, don't worry, everything's going to be all right. 3 little birds at my doorstep. 3 little birds are back again. Remind me. But an eagle builds its nests so that when the baby eagles, they get a little too heavy, it starts to hurt, so they have to take flight because they don't want to be in pain, right? It's an important thing. But what is it that gets them to take flight, these baby eagles? Is the discomfort. What is it that brings us to finally listen to God? Uncomfortable circumstances. Just like that tree that I always talk about. It's not bearing fruit. What do? You dig about it. You rip off the dead branches, right? You throw a bunch of manure on it. It's probably not fun for the tree, but if you do all that, perhaps it'll bear some fruit. And let me tell you something, resistance isn't always a bad thing. If you're going through a hard time right now and you feel like everything's against you right now and things are very hard for you right now and everything feels like a fight right now, I want you to remember that if you cut the butterfly out of the cocoon too soon, it won't survive because it won't be strong enough. It'll die. If you get that chick out of the egg and you don't allow that chick to fight its way free from that shell. What a beautiful picture, that shell, who you think you are. You're so much more than just a flesh pot walking around. But if you help that chickie, what happens? It dies. You gotta have the fight. You gotta have the struggle. You gotta have the hard times. Hard times. That's why the scriptures say that you should rejoice and you should thank God in your persecutions and your hardships and everything else, because you know that it's creating in you something that your hard times can't even be compared to. The glory that's going to be revealed then, so much better. God speaks to pretty much everybody through their circumstance. Spoke to his prophets, to his people, right? He spoke to his son. He speaks to all of us, his children, the children of the kingdom of God. He speaks to us through our circumstance. Think about Jonah, right? Jonah, he knew what to do. How many times have I known what to do? I know it's time to move and I don't move, and then what happens? The storm comes. Well, what are you going to do? You knew you were supposed to go. You knew you weren't supposed to work there anymore. You knew you were supposed to give that up. You knew you weren't supposed to do that anymore. You knew that it was time to forgive. You knew that it was time. But when you don't listen to God speaking to your heart, because that's one way the scriptures say God speaks to us in our thoughts, speaks to us in our heart, right? But it's not like it's so audible and you can hear it. You have to seek the Lord. Seek you first the kingdom of God. Seek you the voice of God. Seek you the wisdom of God. Seek you the truth of God. Seek first, and everything else will be added on to you. What a beautiful promise that is. Jonah knew he was supposed to go to Nineveh, but he didn't listen. That's why when the storm came and things got really messed up, he said, it's because of me these storms are here, right? It's an allegory. It's because of me. You're not taking up Christ. You're not lifting up Christ. You're not waking up Christ. You're not asking for Christ. And the storms come to get you to cry out to Christ. That picture of Christ asleep when the storms come and they're like, Master, wake up, we perish. Same thing was with Jonah. It's a picture. Jonah, by the way, which means dove. I've told you this, a messenger of truth. The dove that descended on Jesus, Yeshua, when he was being baptized. That spoke to people. Behold my son in whom I'm well pleased. When a dove descends on a baptism and people are looking, that's a sign. That's God speaking. Now, did they audibly hear a voice of God? Perhaps. Or was this man baptized by John and the dove descended? Did people sit back and say that this is obviously a sign? This is the voice of God. Spoke to Moses through a burning bush. By the way, your brain, when it's fired up, it looks like a burning bush. Spoke to Jacob in a dream, spoke to Joseph in a dream. Dreams as well. Sometimes you wake up from these dreams and you're like, what does it mean? And you try to put some attention to it, but it isn't until much, much later that you put two and two together. Oh, I know, Jacob, God speaks. Yeah, of course he speaks to his prophets. He speaks to all these important people, but he can't speak to me, people say. And yet God is speaking. The scriptures even say that everything that's created, everything that you see, that God is declared in the trees and the grass and in the water. Everything that is made expresses the work of God, the truth of God, the voice of God. And that goes for everything in your life too. But you have to seek it. You got to seek it. You got to understand when the storm comes, instead of cursing God and being upset, you go to God and you say, all right, this storm is because you want me to live a more godly life. You want me to forgive. You want me to be compassionate. You want me to come and step boldly into your throne of grace. God speaks to me. How many times on the channel do I say something goofy? Like, remember that carpenter hunter beetle that seemed to attack me, and then a year later it seemed to attack me again, and then it led me down? See, God speaks to us through strange things as well. He spoke to Gideon through a fleece, right? A fleece. How silly is that? Fleece is comfy. It's comfy. You say you can't hear the voice of God, it's because you're not listening. You're not listening. God is speaking in every aspect of your life. Oh, my kids are giving me a hard time. Oh, my wife is so mean to me. Oh, my husband is so mean to me. Oh, my in-laws, they're just terrible. Oh, my boss at work, he's so cruel. Oh, all of these things that happen to us, they're happening for us. They're working together for our good. And that's why if you understand that sometimes the storms come, sometimes discomfort comes, so that God can get you to fly above your circumstances. The apostles said these hard times they're for your benefit. Every terrible thing that's happened in my life, and there've been a lot. I've lost everything. I've been sick. I've been abused. I've had hardship. I've gone through some stuff. But I wouldn't trade any of it for the day that I'm in today. I wouldn't trade any of it for the wisdom that God has taught me and showed me how ignorant I've been, how he's there in that still calm voice after the storm waiting, saying, return to me. God also speaks to us with a whisper. When Elijah was waiting to hear from God, right? When Elijah was waiting to hear from God, first there was, it wasn't in the terrible tornado. It wasn't in the terrible storm. It wasn't in the massive fire. It wasn't in the devastation. It was when all the dust had settled. You like that expression? Remember we talked about dust on the last show. By the way, not a lot of people saw it, which is strange. It's such an amazing show. If you haven't checked it out, watch it now, or it'll be linked at the end. When all the dust has settled and it's no longer obscuring your view, God's speaking. Right there in a whisper, God speaks to us. It's quiet. God speaks to us. It's loud. God speaks to us. And his word never, get that, returns void. God's going to get what he wills. So stop worrying that you're too far gone, or stop worrying. It's like, I got to catch up. I got to learn the Bible. I got to go to Bible study. I got to go to church. You don't need to do any of that. You can do that if you want. I love doing stuff like that, but you don't need any of that. God's speaking to you right now. You just need to listen. The voice of God is ever present in your life, and sometimes it's deafening silence. And there's a reason for that as well. Just like every time I come on here to do a video, I don't know what to do. Every time I come on here to talk, many times I stop and I pray and I'm like, just give me the words so that when I come on here and I talk, that I have something that's important to say. Because I don't have time to script these. I don't have a script. I have ideas. I have a little whisper or a big circumstance or a fig tree that I see that's starting to grow that still doesn't have any fruit. I wonder, why is that? I mean, I understand why. It is still a baby tree. Maybe next year. God speaks to me by the fact that bird nest is like so exposed and so close to the door that the birds of the air, they have shelter. The birds of the air, they aren't scared. They're not worried. Danielle and I also saw bunnies. Yeah, a mother giving her, giving birth to bunnies in our front yard. We just sat there and watched. It was quite interesting. Then we got to watch these bunnies grow up and then get out of that little hole and look cute and eat my lettuce. The voice of God is very present today. Don't get stressed out if you've never ever prayed before, or if you've never done this before or done that before. Right? You don't need to go down and do some crazy altar call or whatever else they tell you to do. All you have to do is just take a second and just say, Lord, whoever you are, whatever you are, teach me the truth no matter what the cost. Open my eyes to you. I want to seek your kingdom. I want to know your Christ. I want to serve you, God, because that's the only thing that matters. We came from, we're going to return to. The flesh comes from the dust and it returns to the dust. But the truth of who we are, so much bigger. This is why John, who heard God speak through that dove, right? That beautiful sign of that dove. John said he must increase and I must decrease. There's a reason why they were 6 months apart in age. 6 is the number of man. Picture of the religious man in the wilderness. And then there's a picture of Christ, the King, who John understood. He wasn't worthy to even loosen his sandal. How interesting is that? Carnal man, who we think we are, we don't think we're worthy of Christ. And yet Christ comes and says to John, suffer it to be so. Baptize me. Suffer it to be so. Sometimes we got to suffer so Christ is resurrected in our hearts and in this world again. I love you. I hope you do me a favor and tell your friends about the channel. Please share these videos around. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you comment. These are little things that you can do to help, especially if whatever I'm doing here has helped you. That's all I need you to do. That's all I want you to do. It's helpful. I appreciate it. If you want to get a copy of the novel, you should. It's awesome. There's a link below in the description, The Calling. There's more to the story. Believe me, hopefully one day by 2022 in September, we'll be able to, we'll all rejoice because of this faith that God has given me, that something more is coming out of all this. What a day we're in, right? What a day. Be excited. Listen to the voice of God. It's not a weapon, but it certainly can protect you against one. I love each and every one of you, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching Jacob Israel. please hit that like button, leave a comment, subscribe, and share this channel around. If these shows have helped you, help Jacob to reach more any way you can, and have the best day ever.
Click it.